December 2nd, 2015.
Dear Simple.
Dearest Simple,
Dear Simple,
To the Fluffy Feather Rider.
the world is your oyster.
Thank you so much for your email, which was titled Rabble, Rabble, Rabble.
Translation.
legally required annual celebration of privacy policy updates.
Upon receiving your email updating your privacy policies, I was dismayed to learn that you have rarely received paper mail. Horrors. I decided to fix that.
I hope you enjoy what is quite possibly your first letter. Exciting.
May I have a picture of you writing me back with the fluffiest of feather quills?
I couldn't stand the idea of you never getting real letters. So here's an inspirational oyster.
In order to kick off this special occasion, I send you my nicest cardstock. As you can see, it features my favorite animal, a squirrel.
Here's a drawing of a ferret.
I just wanted to say I love Simple and its take on what banking should be. It has really helped me in saving for my upcoming wedding.
I'd wish you all a sunny day, but that's probably a far-fetched wish. So instead, I wish you a microbrew-filled day. A happy and more educated customer.
I love what you guys are doing. Stay awesome, Simple.
Stay awesome.
Happy holidays, and thank you for everything you do.
Welcome back to the email and mobile track. So we're going to talk about a lot of things in this next case study, but mostly we're going to talk about that's an amazing reaction to get from customers over an email. So let's now meet the woman behind that success story. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Esterman, Lifecycle Marketing Manager for Simple. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit about your background, how you came to be at Simple, and what you do there.
Sure, so I started at Simple just about 2 years ago. I started as an email marketing specialist, worked my way up to Lifecycle Marketing Manager. I now manage a team of 2, someone on the segmentation and data side, and then our content producer who writes a lot of our amazing emails.
Okay. And your summit journey, your MarketingSherpa summit journey, began about 2 years ago when you saw Stephen Dubner as a featured speaker right up here on this stage. What did you take away from Stephen?
Sure, so one of the things that Stephen talked about was Kobayashi, who's the competitive eating champion. I don't know if you're familiar with hot dog eating championships. I'm not an expert, but one of the things that he talked about is that when Kobayashi annihilated the record from previous years, he didn't just like eat a hot dog or 2 more, he just completely beat the record. And the thing that they asked him was like, well, did you pay attention to the old record? How did you go about beating it? And he said that he paid no mental allegiance to it. And that stuck out to me because I had recently started at Simple. I was really excited to get going rebuilding the email marketing strategy. And while I was looking at all of the things that had been done before, I realized that I could instead go back and think about the way things should be done.
So we're going to look at how you paid no mental allegiance to email. I love that. But first, let's start with who is Simple's customer and how do you serve them?
Sure. So we are a technology company that's changing the way people think about banking. We do this with a fully FDIC-insured checking account. It's on the screen. You can read about us. Go to simple.com if you want. But one of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about what we do is our mission. We are a mission-driven company. Our mission is to help customers feel more confident with their money. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that company somewhat because, we're going to talk about a customer-first marketing case study here, but it's really a customer-first business approach.
Yeah, so I could talk about how from the ground up, we are customer-first. Our whole customer support team is just a floor below the one I work on, so I could go down and talk to people if I wanted to and get an idea of what our customers are struggling with. Also, though, I'm a customer, and even when I started at Simple, at the time we had a wait list to sign up, and I was on the wait list. I was on the wait list when I applied. I was so excited to work for this company that I also wanted to bank with. And so as a customer, I feel like Simple has my best interests in mind. I'm completely confident in that. And even if I were to leave my job tomorrow, which I won't, because I love it, I would definitely continue banking with us.
All right, well, so let's see in this case study how you learn about customers. So if you're out there practicing email marketing, mobile marketing, it all begins with a customer, right? So in this case study, you'll get a few tips and ideas of how you can learn more about those customers to better serve them. So one of them you mentioned is the support team that you have so close to you. So how do you use support calls and messages to learn about your customers?
So in a brick-and-mortar banking environment, you might go in and sign up for an account, and at that time you would have to provide documentation of who you are, like your ID, give some more documentation that you actually live at the address that you live at. We don't have that opportunity in the online world. We don't see anybody face-to-face. So sometimes when you apply for a Simple account, we might ask you for additional documentation at the end just to verify that you are who you say you are, that sort of thing. There is a confirmation page after you submit your documentation. It's like, hey, we got this, we're working on it, and we'll get back to you when we have approved your account or not. And we found that we were getting a lot of customer contact around when am I going to hear, what's going on, did I do all the things I needed to do? And so one of the things that we decided to do to help eliminate that anxiety is we added an email. That's just a confirmation. It's basically a receipt after you submit your documentation. You get this email that says, hey, we've got it. We'll be in touch in a few days. And we found that we reduced the related support cases by 36%, which was huge.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So we think about email for marketing, of course, but it can do many things. And it's great to be able to use email to almost replicate that in-human experience and also help with some of the customer service issues that you're having.
Yeah, totally.
So let's look at another way that you can learn about customers, device usage data. So I think you have a fairly millennial skewed audience, right? You're probably pretty mobile.
Yeah, so we're online banking. So the only way to bank with us is from your mobile device. We have iOS and Android apps or on the web. And while a lot of our customers choose to use the mobile apps, I personally use the mobile apps primarily, we still have desktop users. And also emails get opened about 40% of the time on desktop. So we want to be able to provide our customers with the right path forward, regardless of where they open the email, desktop or their phone.
Let's see how you do that.
So one of the things that we have is canonical deep links, and canonical is just a fancy word for it will redirect in your browser and take you to the app if you're on your phone or directly to the web app if you're on desktop. And so we have landing pages for both. In the screen you're seeing specifically for our card activation emails, the landing page on web and then the landing page on the mobile app.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. So another thing, when we talk about data a lot, really another way we can learn about our customers is just using some of that customer empathy. So in your case, you are a simple customer, but even if we're not customers of our specific institutions, our specific companies, we can get to know those customers better and try to put ourselves in their shoes. And I love how you did it for this example, because you had to send an email. This is going to be really enticing. You have to send an email about this.
Yep.
What is this wall of text?
So this is part of Regulation E, and Regulation E is the really legalese piece of banking jargon that tells you really important stuff. It tells you what to do in case of fraud, your rights, protections, and responsibilities. And so it's stuff that our customers need to know, and we are legally obligated to email our customers every year to remind them about it. We can't just send a link to it. We actually have to include a huge chunk of it. It's about 800 words in the email itself, word for word, which is a huge marketing challenge if you're trying to help customers feel more confident with their money because it's difficult to read.
Sounds very mobile friendly.
Oh yeah.
So let's look at what you did.
Sure, so I was in a meeting with biz ops, legal, risk, and compliance, and we were talking about what we could do with this email to at least make it better, because historically we had just had our privacy policy updates at the top and then put the entire Regulation E in a postscript, and that's clearly not the best way to do it. And so I was looking around the room and I asked, remember in high school and college when you would have Shakespeare, like the original text on one side and then the modern day translation on the other? What if we did that? And so we did. We broke up the text, like Regulation E, into pieces, digestible chunks, and then we translated those pieces. We worked with our amazing in-house copywriter and designer to make a pretty beautiful email despite the content itself, and we even included a picture of my dog. That's him. His name is Parker.
Yeah, no, I love your subject line, rabble, rabble, rabble. Translation required, legalese enclosed. So I love it. This is a very customer-first approach, right? We see regulations, sometimes we complain about them, why do we have to do this thing? But to your point, it existed there for a reason to help the customer. So instead of just throwing it at them, you really tried to walk them through and help them understand it. What kind of results did you get from that?
Well, we saw the video at the beginning. So customers actually wrote us letters because there was a piece in the regulation where you might have to write in about your fraud, and we, in the translation, said that we would write 50 letter writers back using our fluffiest feather quill, so we bought a feather quill for the occasion. We also saw a 55% open rate, 200 replies to the email, which is pretty rare for us, and they were all people who were super happy about it, and they felt like we provided a lot of value. And engagement on Twitter skyrocketed. The fun part about that is that I have screenshotted every little tweet and bookmarked them. If I'm ever having a bad day, I have something great to look back on.
I love that. All right, so that was 2015. Mm-hmm. So come to 2016, you got to do this all over again. What did you do?
we went back to the drawing board. We didn't want to do something that's like the sequel, even though we joked about that a lot, because we had acquired a lot of customers in the year before that had never seen our approach. And so we did something similar in that we had a translation, but we also appended what we called the Museum of the Mundane. So we included things like lint, floss, things that are like important and useful, and added Regulation E into it because it's important and useful. It's just could be mundane on the surface.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I'm sure we all face this. There's just kind of that dog project we have, the thing we hate working on, and a regulatory email could certainly fit within that. But it sounds like this is something that your team really rallies around and brainstorms about. Is that what happens?
Yeah, this is our favorite project of the year. It's so fun.
The regulation email.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the results.
So we had a lower open rate this year, 47.59%. Not too worried about that because the subject line itself wasn't as engaging as rabble, rabble, rabble. Lint, floss, Regulation E doesn't quite have the same zing to it. Twitter engagement, again, went up. And we also saw a few press pieces this year, which was pretty exciting.
That's awesome. All right, another thing, of course, we can use to learn about customers is the customer actions themselves, their behaviors. And so you were engaged in some testing. So talk to us about what is your cart abandonment campaign?
So we don't have a traditional shopping cart. We're not retail. One of the things, though, that we still have to do is, like we had talked about in the beginning with that identity confirmation stuff, if you haven't uploaded your documents, we will remind you to do so. And between the first and second reminder, there was a 7-day wait period because we wanted to be conservative. We didn't want to be annoying. And one of the things that we looked at this year when we were trying to increase our conversions was what happens if we decrease that timeline a lot to 2 days?
And I assume that 7 days because you don't want to email people too frequently and bother
Yeah.
them. So a really interesting thing when you think about that is with our campaigns or with whatever processes we have with our customers, it's very easy to think in our own minds of like, okay, like this is all they're thinking about. This is all we're thinking about. When are they going to email again? So we put this together to get us into the customer's shoes, right? So on day one, they begin signing up for that Simple account, right? But then they just live their lives. They're not thinking about Simple again. Day 2, they've got a business presentation. Day 3, they're doing yoga. Day 4, another business presentation. Day 5, they're hanging with their family. Day 6, they're buying something online. Day 7, more yoga. It gets kind of mundane. The control email was sent at day 7. Look how much of their lives they lived between day 1 and day 7. Is Simple really at the top of their mind anymore? As opposed to day 2, when the reminder email was sent. So what were the results you saw from that?
A 6% increase in opens, which was huge, and then a 107% increase in conversions, which was so much bigger than any of us had ever expected.
That's pretty amazing, doubling conversions, when all you had to do is change when you sent the follow-up email.
Yeah.
All right, let's take another look at a timing campaign. So walk us through, what are your drip campaigns? What are drip campaigns for Simple?
So one of ours has to do with funding your account, because if you don't add money into your Simple account, you don't get to use Simple because we're a checking account. And after you activate your card, if you haven't added any money, we will prompt you to fund and inform you of all the ways that you can do that. And so we A/B tested similar to the previous example with timing. We had a 7-day wait period in between, and we wanted to see what happens if we decrease that to 3 days.
All right, let's see what we saw from that.
22% relative increase in opens, which was huge, and a 25% increase in conversion.
That's great. So, what I take away from that is it's good to want to be sensitive to the frequency of sending things, but really try to put yourself in the customer's shoes and think about when does it make the most sense to send it to them, and try a little testing and see if something more frequent would work out well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that what's important too is that we didn't see a decrease in opens or a huge increase in unsubscribes, because if we saw that, we might have a little more caution. But since opens went up as well, I feel pretty confident that that was the right choice.
Yeah, and it was probably too because these emails were of a service to the customer. It's a complex process. They're trying to think through, figure out how it works, kind of like we said in the beginning with having to present their ID. So it's probably helpful that they maybe appreciated it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, then there's also the order of communication. So is this also from your drip campaign?
Yes, so after you sign up for an account, we would welcome you, and then the next day prompt you with Funding 101. It just tells you all the ways that you can add money to your account, because you can't just walk in and give us money, like a check. And then we would follow up a couple days later with Goals 101, which is a name we call it internally, but it just lets you know about one of our big features of Simple and how to use it. And one of the things we wanted to test was what happens if we reverse the order. And, well,
I gave it away.
yeah, 3% relative increase in open rate, which wasn't huge, it wasn't significant. And there was no difference in conversion. It didn't matter, the order.
But another great idea for a test, when you try to think through what are the steps that make sense for the customer and trying to see, okay, from their perspective, what order really makes sense. And sometimes it's good to learn that there's not a difference, right? Because you know, okay, this isn't worth focusing on, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, oh, as a writer, I love this one. Walk us through this button copy example.
So in this email, we like to be clever with our copy. It's simple. It's just something fun about us. And in this example, we have a little piece of copy in a paragraph that says there's a helpful button below. And so the original thing that we did was we labeled the button, the call to action button, helpful button. And we wanted to test, because we weren't getting the kind of conversions we had hoped to see from that, the number of clicks. So we wanted to test what happens if we just have a more conventional copy of link an account, which is the actual action a customer would need to take.
All right, before we go to the next one, maybe just a show of hands. Who here thinks helpful button was the winner? We got some fun people in the audience there.
Yeah.
All right, how about link an account? Who thinks link an account won? Okay, more of a fun audience here. Let's see, is your customers fun? No, they're not fun.
And we have a 10% increase when we stuck to the more conventional copy. My theory around this, and it hurts to say this as someone who writes as well, is that customers don't read every word of your email. So without reading that little section, there's no context as to what helpful button even means.
Yeah, the button itself, just looking only at the button, you probably have to sell, okay, what's the value behind it for clicking on that button?
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, let's look at a big picture. What's your overall results?
So we see on average a 52% open rate. This is of all of the emails we've ever sent, and also we do a rolling open rate week over week, and it's about the same. We have a 15% average click rate on emails with call to action buttons. Not all of our emails have a place to click. And also because we're in banking, our customers are a little more careful and cautious, so they don't always click. They'll sometimes reroute and just go into the app themselves. That's why we track our conversions by open rather than click. And we have a 407% increase in customer engagement, and that is an internal metric that we've created that encompasses opens, clicks, Twitter engagement, all that stuff.
Okay. Now, when we had first talked about this, I was a little skeptical about that 52% open rate. I was like, wait a minute, these are all transactional emails. Of course there's a big open rate. And you corrected me and you said, well, that's entirely the point behind your email campaign. You want to tell me what you're doing there?
Yeah, we don't send a lot of promotional emails. We don't send any promotional emails. We try to keep our email communication as, I say the word intimate, but that sounds weird in this context, but we try to keep it as a one-to-one place where we're not talking to all and promoting a bunch of stuff, but we're saying this is what you need at this time as a customer.
Okay. I also want to talk about that open rate metric and why you track that. That's really important. I was talking to a colleague about a coaching clinic last night, and they said, hey, the problem with the emails they were seeing, it wasn't that the email itself was bad, it's that they were tracking the wrong conversion rate. It was a product where it didn't make sense for people to click through directly to anything. And so really understanding, how did you come to that understanding of what that right metric would be for your email?
Yeah, so because we're in banking, I mentioned this a little bit, people don't always click in the emails, and we want to be aware of that. And also, a lot of our emails are transactional, like truly transactional, where we're saying this thing happened, and there's no action to take. It's just, you've done this thing, and so clicking isn't always a positive metric for us to track. Whereas open, that gives us a better sense of whether our customers are engaged with our emails or not.
Okay, makes sense. So I'm going to ask Sarah her top takeaways in just a moment, but if you have any questions, just raise your hand. We're going to have some mics coming around, and Sarah can answer your questions. I see one in the back there. We can get a mic over there. But what are your top takeaways? What would you share with other marketers?
Rally your stakeholders. You can't do this work alone. I certainly can't do it alone, even with the Regulation E stuff. I had to get buy-in from a lot of folks. So make sure that people know what you want to do and are really empowered, so that you're really empowered to do your work. Be human, because we are all human in this room. Our customers are all human, so let's talk to them like we are. That's how we build relationships. And this work is a lot more fun if we are building real relationships, which leads me right into have fun with it, because this work is so much fun, and we are all super important to our organization. So enjoy that, be empowered by that, and have a ton of fun with the work that you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, if you can have fun with the regulation email, you can have fun with anything. Yeah. So I think we had a question there in the back.
Jason Baskran, Apsis International. Really interesting presentational Q&A. It was nice to see a business kind of doing what I call marketing hygiene, the kind of basics. The thing I kind of want to ask you about is, if you're measuring people that are opening, are you also looking at if there's a nudge effect for them then opening the app within a period of 30 minutes or 1 hour, 2 hours, because that might be a better indicator, and if not, is there thoughts to maybe link that together?
Sure, so to clarify my statement a little bit, we definitely look at opens, but then we look at the conversion metric. So for some emails, that's did they actually go and link an account, or did they deposit money into their account, or submit their IDV documentation. IDV is identity verification documentation. And rather than looking whether they open the app in like the next 30 minutes, we look at did they open the email and then within a certain time period actually take the action. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand. We have one over there. And another one over here, Keith. Let's go.
Hey, good morning. Great data. Just a couple questions. Are you using a homegrown CRM, or what platform are you working on, and how are you managing your drip campaigns? Is it a customized software or a cloud solution?
Sure, we use Iterable, which is a newer ESP to the market. They also do in-app messaging and push notifications, and I think they just added SMS. And so we integrate with them, and that's how we do all of our segmentation and sending.
And I think we had another one right there.
A two-part question, great presentation. Are you measuring incremental ROI on your program, one? And two, I think McKinsey talks about 7 key journeys in the financial services market. And have you mastered those, or what percentage of welcome, win back, abandonment? How important are your journeys to your business?
Sure. So the first question, we are managing incremental lift on our conversions. And then the second question, we don't follow the specific, like, these are the 7 journeys. Instead, we look at our specific customer experience because it's unique to us, and we have storyboarded it out, and we look at the data to help inform those decisions.
Any other questions? All right, great. Well, if you'd like to ask Sarah any other questions, or if you'd like for ideas to make your regulatory emails more fun or delightful, or really take your most boring, mundane thing, let's just put it that way, whatever your most boring, mundane project is, bring it over to Roundtable 25. Sarah's going to be hosting it, and she'll give you an idea for a way to make it fun.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.